you, buddy.
Well, Taya told me before Taya left today. Well, never mind.
What did you make a fourth jump crack at there?
Thought I looked like Jeff Penner and Gary Lezak calling the weather here.
Oh, you need the green screen. Oh, the green screen's gone.
We're live.
1 minute. Everybody back? I see Dan. Kelly's frozen. I don't know if Marv's back, Steve's back. All right, we're all here. Smithville Board of Alderman meeting is now called to order. Please stand and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Alderman Sarver.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Alderman Atkins.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions on the consent agenda? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Committee reports. We had Finance Committee and we had P&Z. Alderman Chevalier bailed on me, so I guess I'll have to have Jack give us some updates on P&Z for building permit numbers because we had to look one up anyway. But for Finance Committee, I'll hand that over to Alderman Atkins or Hartman, whoever wants to take that one. Also went over in Finance Committee because I had to miss part of that one for P&Z. Who wants to go?
Go ahead, Dan.
Nope, I was not there, but I did read my packet on the way to Wichita and discussed yesterday with Cynthia and Stephen in depth, but it's really more of the same of what we just had. And that was updates, detailed updates on where we are through Q2. Of course, everyone knows, and I had to write it out. Stephen and Cynthia laughed at me yesterday. We basically start our quarter one in November. Q2 ended the end of April. So a little bit different, but I mean, the packet was very thorough. I just had a few questions specific to allocations. So I think that we covered tonight in our work session, both thoroughly, both areas.
Thank you.
Marv, did I miss anything?
No, I echo your comments. I will say I'll give Stephen a compliment about his presentation. It was thorough, quick, and to the point. Thank you, Stephen.
I'm just glad there's pictures in it so I can read it quick, you know. All right, planning and zoning. Jack, do you have the numbers on commercial permits and residential permits?
Yeah, the residential permits still sitting at 25. Commercial, we have a total of 4 this year. This fiscal year, related to where we're at. I don't know the exact date of starts on some of them, but the 2 most recent are Burger King and Domino's.
Cool. And then we also, later in our packet, we'll see the information on our dwelling and lot sizes. We had a really good discussion on that, and the annexation, the zonings of the stuff we've annexed in. So it was kind of a short P&Z actually for what we were talking about. I was kind of surprised. So, City Administrator's report. Ms. Wagner, do you have anything to report?
The only thing I'd like to add to the information that's included in your packet is to emphasize the fact that the contractors indicate we remain on schedule for completion of the renovation project here early June. We had a couple of changes identified this week that may affect that, but I think substantial completion we can be looking at mid-June. Reminder that next Thursday, the 27th, is the strategic planning retreat, or excuse me, the Board of Aldermen and staff retreat. That will begin at 8:30 at Paradise Point. And then also wanted to highlight the information included in the report indicating would like to offer kind of orientation sessions for any board members that have an interest in touring or understanding more about departmental operations. And we'll start scheduling those after the retreat. So if you want to, excuse me, if you want to contact me, and I'll determine who all wants to be involved in those sessions and work on that scheduling, or if anyone has any questions on those. With that, I'll stand for any questions the board has.
Yeah, so from Chuck's earlier report, I heard he needs a little help in the street department. So anybody wants to go out and help crack seal and see what that's all about. And I think clean out some storm drains and all that good stuff, right? Use that big vacuum on the street sweeper.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to treat a little wastewater, we have a big plant needs to be maintained.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one. All right, next item on the agenda is number 6. This does have 2 readings because it is something I got to get back to MoDOT. So go with the first reading of number 6. Alderman Sarver.
A motion to approve bill number 2904-21, quitclaim deed, MoDOT 188th Street Emergency Ordinance, first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Alderman Atkins.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions on this one? All right, clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
Alderman Hartman,
Aye.
Alderman Kabilski,
Aye.
Alderman Sarver,
Aye.
Alderman Uladell.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for improvements to Highway 169 and 188th Street in the city of Smithville, consisting of pavement improvements, shoulder additions, lane widening, turn lanes, sight distance drainage improvements, and relocation of the city's water main.
Thank you. Now, second reading. Can I get a motion to approve for the second reading, please? Alderman Sarver.
Motion to approve bill number 2904-21, quitclaim deed, MoDOT 188th Street, second reading.
Thank you. Alderman Atkins.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Sarver,
Aye.
Alderman Uladell,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
Alderman Kabilski,
Aye.
Alderman Hartman.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for improvements to Highway 169 and 188th Street in the city of Smithville, consisting of pavement improvements, shoulder additions, lane widening, turn lanes, sight distance, drainage improvements, and relocation of the city's water main.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is number 7. Alderman Sarver.
Motion to approve bill number 2905-21, initial zoning for certain lots in Lakeside Crossing, first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Alderman Atkins.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Hartman,
Aye.
Alderman Uladell.
Aye.
Alderman Kabilski,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Smithville, Missouri.
Thank you. 1 second, please. Good old MoDOT paperwork. All right, next item on the agenda is number 8. Alderman Sarver. You're on mute. Steve, you're on mute.
Motion to approve bill number 2906-21, dwelling and lot size, first reading.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Alderman Hartman? Dan, you're on mute when you said second. I
Yes,
think.
yes. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Yulidol.
Aye.
Alderman Kibelski.
Aye.
Alderman Hartman.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance repealing sections 400.090 through 400.150 of the Smithville Municipal Code and reenacting new sections 400.090 to 400.150.
Thank you. Next item is number 9, resolution 915. Alderman Sarver.
Motion to approve resolution 915, purchase utility meter equipment.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Alderman Hartman.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I think Chuck went over this in the other meeting, but we're buying more meters to replace our meters, correct? All those in favor of approving resolution 915, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is number 10, resolution 916. I have a motion to approve number 10. Alderman Yulidol.
Motion to approve resolution 916, accepting right of way easements.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Atkins seconds. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of approving resolution 916, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item is number 11, resolution 917. Alderman Sarver.
Motion to approve resolution 917, agreement with Clay County for tax collection.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Atkins, thank you for seconding. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor of approving resolution 917, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item is number 12, resolution 918. Alderman Yulidol.
Resolution 918, leak adjustment for Sherry Breckenridge.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Oh, Alderman Kibelski, gotcha, Dan.
She got me.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving resolution 918, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Any public comment? Linda?
No, I have no public comment.
All righty. Were you throwing something at Chuck there?
We do have, Mr. Turley is on, but I don't know if he wants to speak. He never said.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if he was here for something else. Mr. Turley, you're here for public comment? Okay. Next item on the agenda is number 14, appointment to the EDC committee. I think the information should be in your packet from Mr. Langley, but I appoint Steve Langley to the Economic Development Committee. Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderman Hartman.
Aye.
Alderman Yulidol.
Aye.
Alderman Kibelski.
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you. Turley will serve on the Economic Development Committee. So Anna, you now have another member, so you can have your meetings.
Thank you.
Does that fill up that committee, or do you still need one more?
I currently have one open position left.
Okay. All right, 1 second. Let me finish signing stuff. Okie dokie. All that is done, I hope. Now, number 15. I think that's why Aaron is here. Aaron, is it just you, or do you have somebody else?
Hello, Mayor. It's me, and I have my senior project engineer, Kent Newport, with me as well.
Okay. Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. I appreciate the time this evening. So we're here to discuss the South Force Main and South Booster Pump Station on 144th Street project. This is a project that was conceived over 8 years ago. It was a project to, original goal of the project was to get the Forest Oaks subdivision off of the Rocky Branch treatment plant, which is the KCMO treatment plant on the south end of town. And it was also to replace the existing aging Hills of Shannon pump station. And at that time, the plan was to install the purple line. If you can, see right there is the pump station on 144th Street, and it was to connect to the existing South Force Main right there near the intersection of 144 and 169. And then the project kind of got put on the shelf. There was other priorities the city wanted to address first, which included the new influent pump station at the treatment plant and the new gravity sewer line that goes up to across from the hospital right there. That helps relieve some of the capacity constraints on that force main. But as we started to dust that project off, there has been additional development in kind of the central portion of town around Highway 92. There's now approximately 20 pump stations that all connect to that force main. And Kent Newport, who's done many of these projects, was in the selection of final pumps on that pump station. And we were coming up with some pretty high pressure pumps. And Kent had concerns about what effect those pumps, that high pressure was going to have on the existing pump stations. And so we took a step back and did a whole nother analysis on that South Force Main. And I'm going to let Kent talk a little bit more about the results of that additional analysis.
Thanks, Aaron. Hello, Mayor and the board. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us. Basically, what we determined is this pump station is south 144th Street. The proposed pump station kind of sits down in the hole near the river, which is kind of where you want it at, or near the creek. And it has a high static head, or it has to pump up at least 140 feet just to get over the high point in the system. Let's see, I don't know if we can see that. So in this drawing, just real quick, I'm trying to lay it out for you. We're showing the proposed pump station here in the green block. And then this line here that's kind of in blue is the ground line going to the discharge point in the gravity sewer. So the pump station is about 1,200 feet away. There's a high point here at about 5,000 feet from the gravity sewer that the pump has to be able to pump over. And what we determined is that when we put this pump station online, the pump station at Woods Court is not able to pump. What these little dash lines here is showing the shut-off head of those pumps. So if we're pumping 500 gallons per minute through this pump station, Woods Court would not be able to pump, and neither would Gerber collision. McDonald's would just barely be pumping a little bit of flow because of that pump station. And that's just assuming that these pump stations, just a couple of these pump stations are running. And what we were concerned about is that if we have inflow and infiltration, like we kind of do at Hills of Shannon, that we would be overloading the 8-inch force main that is in there. And so when we kind of did the calcs and did this analysis on the pump station, trying to get an extra amount of flow in there, we decided that we found out that basically none of these pump stations would pump if we had the future flows trying to go into this pump station. And so then it wouldn't really be pumping what you wanted, which would be adding the flow from down here at Forest Oaks in the future. And then some of this area in this around this purple line developing, which was the goal of the original pump station design. And what we determined is this 8-inch force main is just too small, and basically is pretty close to being out of capacity at this time, because when you need that those pump stations is in weather like we're having today, where when it rains hard and you got inflow and infiltration into these gravity sewers, that's when all of these pump stations want to run. They want to run at the same time. And what it looks like to me is that none of these pump stations would work if we would build this pump station at 144th Street. So we looked at what are our options here to do. So we came up with a couple of alternatives. And the bottom line is we need a larger diameter force main or additional force main. You can't upsize the existing one and still pump through it at the same time in the same location. So we looked at two alternatives of adding a force main to the system. Alternative one was to follow what is approximately a overhead electric easement that cuts across 169 highway here, as you can kind of see in red. And then eventually we'd get over to the gravity sewer. The other option was to follow 144th Street down to Second Creek and then just kind of follow Second Creek along and connect into the gravity sewer. And so then basically what comes out of that is obviously alternative 2, following Second Creek, is most expensive because that's 17,350 feet of pipe. Alternative 1 was 11,500 feet of pipe, but that adds approximately $1.2 million to the project. The total project would be $3 million on that is what we were looking at. What we determined is that what we were trying to do was service this area that's colored here on the map. Forest Oaks and additional development of Forest Oaks in this area along 144th Street, in this area along 169 Highway. And that was kind of the goal of this South Booster Pump Station, was that it would help service these additional areas. Without the larger diameter force main, we cannot serve those areas. Basically, in the next 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, who knows for sure, none of these pump stations at Woods Court, McDonald's would be pumping when this pump station tried to pump, and therefore they'd be backing up. And so because of these operational issues, we decided we're going to have difficulty adding any additional flow to this pump station, proposed pump station. If we do alternative 1, alternative 2, what it does for you is it adds all this area. Sorry about that. Gotta get the right. What it does for you is it adds this additional area now that can now flow into this pump station. And then you don't have to develop something new to handle that flow other than this gravity sewer line down to Forest Oaks area. if we put in this proposed alternative 1 force main, which is a 12-inch line. Bottom line is that gives you about 2,400, 2,300 gallons per minute of capacity, extra capacity. Well, it's not additional, total capacity for this pump station to operate. And allows you to serve a lot more service area than you are now, compared to this map, which we wouldn't even be able to serve all of these areas here. It'd just probably be the small area in here at the most. And what we wanted out of this pump station was for it to be a regional pump station to handle this area into the south. And so when we got into design, we found out that we really just couldn't we couldn't do what we had originally hoped, which was just pump the flow into the original 8-inch line, the shallow line here. It's kind of a quick rundown. I hope you understood it. If you got questions, let me know here.
Well, first and foremost, hope is not a good engineering term for me to hear. Right?
Sure. Did I convey something wrong?
You said you'd hope that was going to work. Hope is not a good engineering
No, the
term.
12-inch would work. There's no doubt the 12-inch would
No,
work.
you said the original, you hoped it would
The
work.
8-inch, I think our original thought was that there was a hope that the 8-inch would work and cover that territory, and it wouldn't. And that's what I determined just getting involved in the project here in the last few months. So
Right. So like you said at the beginning of this, Aaron, and 8 years. We've been looking at this for 8 years. So it's either incompetence or oversight. We just did the sewer master plan. We put this out to bid. This is not good news to be brought to us this late in the game.
You're absolutely right, Mayor. The original plan was that building the south portion of the gravity sewer was going to take enough, was going to open up enough capacity to account for Four Stokes and the Hills of Shannon. And there was an error in the calculation. And a
$2 million error.
It's a $1 million error, or potentially, depending on which alternative you look at. Yes.
Yeah, and it's always higher than estimate on this stuff right now, especially with land acquisition and construction costs and everything else going on today. So, you know, I'll let the rest of the board weigh in, but we just finished the sewer master plan. We just put this out to bid. We had plenty of time to get this right.
Well, it hasn't been put out to bid. That's.
Well, I'm sorry, budgeted for the engineering, right?
Yes.
We bid out the engineering and budgeted this. So, and I have former aldermen that, you know, and others who have been talking about this project for years. So I'll open it up to the rest of the floor for questions for Aaron, and Kent, but you know, not good news. So. Alderman Hartman, you're off mute. You have a question?
Yeah, Marv was asking first. Let Marv go and then I'll go ahead and go.
Yeah, sorry, Marv, I couldn't see your hand really there. Your name's kind of in the way on the sign.
Just kind of wondering about any kind of future expansion on the west side of 169, any kind of development of sewer systems.
We kind of have, there's kind of the ridge line is right there in orange. So, I mean, you could potentially, I mean, there's a certain amount of acreage you can develop. I think that was 930 acres. So, I mean, you can swap out any of those parcels on the low end down by the Rocky Branch sewer for more of the frontage on 169, or if you want to pump it over, you'd have to do smaller. You can tie other smaller pump stations into the new force main if that, to pick up some of that capacity.
Okay, thanks.
Aaron, I echo the mayor's frustration. We rely heavily on engineers to guide us. And a $1 million oversight is certainly hard to digest. I sure hope this doesn't happen to other cities and municipalities. It's been presented to us. We obviously got to come up with a plan, but it's disappointing.
I understand your frustration, and I completely apologize for the oversight that was originally made. Just
Yeah, from my point of view, I totally understand where you all are coming from. It was not readily apparent. We started asking, which did hydraulics, tried to figure out how big to make the pump station. And once we got into the hydraulics, realized that we're at our limits on the size of pump. And then we started looking at, well, how does this impact the other pump stations along this route? It is not something you would typically get deep in the weeds with a master plan process. Although, we should have said, well, how much flow might go in here? And what we're looking at is what these pump stations should be able to do without backing up. And, we're working off of 20 pump stations in this area. We don't have any flow data for any of them. When I got involved, I pretty much had to go back and ask for pump flow curves for the larger pump stations that are kind of in the purple on your map, and trying to figure out how they intersect and how they come in to do the hydraulics on this map. So, if you're only looking at average day flows, well, the 8-inch line seems sufficient and has plenty of capacity. But when you have rain events like we're having now today, this week, that are prolonged, then we're looking at peak flows, because now the pumps are trying to pump at their full capacity because the stations are overloaded. And the first thing I heard about Hills of Shannon is that you've got a peak of 12 to 1, 13 to 1 in that area. And so that was a little concerning. I'm pretty sure Woods Court has got the same problem from previous issues I've heard about. And so that's when you want those pump stations to all run. Unfortunately, if that south booster pump station is running, the others aren't going to run. And what I can't guarantee is that those other pump stations won't back up. And that's what we're trying to prevent here. I hate to find it. I hate to say that, we missed it, but somehow it was missed. So apologize for that. And I hate to bring you all bad news, but that's the way it works.
Any other comments from the board?
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Yes.
So, Kenton, I'm just looking at this. So we've been also working on that south sewer line for Forest Oaks to run that up to this lift station. And are we going to have to increase the size of that main to get all this other development into it?
So before you answer that question, Chuck, I would like you to really think about what our standards should be for mains, right? Should we go with what's going to work now, or we need to look at what the future is going to be on these things? Because why do we throw an 8-inch on the south end of town in the first place? It's a lot of land.
Well, that's why I'm asking this question, because I don't know that all that development was planned to go into that green dash line until now, or was it, Aaron? I don't know.
No, the gravity line was always sized for the whole water. Okay. I believe it's a 24-inch, or I think it actually is a 30-inch at the very south, and it gets smaller as it progresses south.
Okay, so all this area was planned to go into that gravity line to the pump station.
Yeah, it was all planned to go down that. the interceptor was sized for the ultimate development. The pump station was never intended at original concept to handle the ultimate development. As the master plan says, we were going to extend the gravity sewer up Wilkerson Creek, and that pump station was going to go away in 20 years.
Okay.
So we're sizing this for if anything comes in on those white areas those are all county zoned areas right there along the east and the west. If those start annexing in and develop a little denser, we're good with 30.
With the size of the sewer, yes,
Yeah.
Based off of the ultimate development in the master plan, yes.
So then my next question and this would be a Jack and Chuck question, with our comp plan, with the proposed developments and use of all those areas, I'd like to hear your guys' input on, the two alternatives and if that's going to even be enough. If we get 144th Street there, that land just traded hands, and they throw apartments on that, they throw density on that area, right there along all of 169, we're talking density in that comp plan for that whole area, right? So is that which one of those alternatives is going to be enough, or do we need another alternative? If we're going to be digging up the ground, we might as well put the pipe in it we can use.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. We need to make sure we're planning for 20 to 30 years instead of less than 10. Apparently this feels like it was put it together that way.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, this is Jack. To answer some part of your question, I think the design with the 12-inch line running down the utility easement, the overhead power line easement, that route, with it being a 12, would eliminate 98% of the pump station conflicts, because none of the lines would be on the same line other than Woods Court. So that 12-inch line would be, it would substantially extend the overall life of that pump station's viability if the line from Helvey Park down through Wilkerson to this area takes longer. I think that 12-inch line, along with the 8-inch line that's already there, would get where we need to be.
Okay. And does that get rid of some of the pump stations if we do that 12?
Ultimately, when the 12 goes in, ultimately we've got to take some of those out with further development, and all of that waste would go through lines to this one pump station. So yes, it would all be able to do that. Yeah.
So alternative one is your recommendation, Jack?
The power line recommendation would be the most cost efficient. They're both going to be 12-inch lines, but it's going to take a long time for the longer route. That the plan on that one was to use it to get the easements for the gravity line that would go through there in 30 years or 40 years. But if we could acquire the utility easement stuff at much quicker and cheaper price, it just makes sense to do it that way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Following power poles is going to be a little easier than following that other line.
Sure.
I agree. And the other thing we talked about is, as development occurs to the west there, development could potentially pay for that pink alternative too, as they came, versus, what we're looking for is trying to get something in as cost effectively that will have capacity for future development. You always have to weigh, you go out 50 years and you're betting on the come, or do you do something that gets you by? And I think this is a good, this gets us a lot of capacity. A 12-inch force main is a lot, and a 30-inch gravity line, that's pretty big. That will handle a lot of flow.
Sounds like a really bad water slide to go down.
Yeah. So if Smithville develops enough to overload that 30-inch gravity line and that 12-inch force main in the next 30 years, you'll be doing fantastic. And then the development can pay for some of this stuff to go in.
Right, but and that's why we need to look at our rates and our tap fees too, right, Chuck? Because
yeah.
make sure we can maintain this stuff in the future and
Yep.
be going. So,
And if I may throw in one other thing, we have a new annexation policy that would help us in that. We wouldn't want to annex the stuff at the very far south end,
right.
Because they couldn't build the sewer that we need. But as we move, if we annex from the existing sewer line and start working our way south, as Chuck is identified, we have the developers do that. As they do that, it's a cost that we don't have to front, and we don't have force mains running miles and miles and miles.
Yep.
Hey, Aaron and Ken, just to reiterate, alternative one is what we're talking about. 12-inch, that's correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So, and just to be clear, so we don't have any misunderstandings, there is an existing utility easement that we're hoping is for utilities and not just solely for electric. So we need to figure that out first. Otherwise, if, like Jack said, it would obviously be cheaper even if we have to buy easements outside of the electric easement, just because the property is already encumbered with other easements. So we want to find out whether or not we can go in that easement in the first place, or if we have to buy property in an additional easement. So,
Aaron and Ken, can you just real quick, high level? I have real estate background and work in commercial real estate, but I'd like to hear from your engineers, kind of what Chuck's talking about, because I understand following easements, existing easements, especially electrical, are much easier. What's the process you guys go through when we need to obtain easements? I know it's a city's procurement, if you will, but how do you help as engineers do that?
Yeah, we do that quite often. And the first thing, when we brought this issue to Chuck and Jack, they, Jack pulled up the plats for some of those properties adjacent to that electrical easement. And that's where we found out there's 3 easements that kind of abut themselves in there. I forget what the total widths are. One's like 125, one's 100, and then there's another 20-foot easement, I remember. And I think it was the second one, the 100 one, was dedicated as a electric and utility easement. So that's where we believe that there may be rights to use that easement for other utilities besides electric. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you ordered a couple of title reports to
And I have ordered them and they have not returned yet, but yes, that will be the determining factor once we see that language.
So if there are available rights in the existing easement, then it's going to be pretty simple to utilize that for utility. We're just going to have to get call in utility locates and figure out what utilities are in there right now and work around those. My assumption is there's probably some telecommunication and fiber optic type lines that may be in those easements. If we have to get new easements, then what we would do is we'd have to get an appraiser on board, and they'd have to appraise the property, and then we'd have to make fair market value offers to the property owners and negotiate those easements. And we don't, as an engineering firm, we don't do appraisals. We'd have to have a licensed real estate professional do that. We can sub that, or I know Chuck and Cynthia and Jack, they've also worked with consultants to acquire those appraisals as well. We can support you in any way as far as providing the technical information during negotiations and things like that as well.
Okay, one last question. Thank you, Aaron. Figure 2 is our alternative 1, correct? Is that right? I'm looking here. I've got figures 1, 2, and 3 in the packet. I just want to make sure that on alternative 1, is that figure 2?
It's figure 3 with the red line.
Okay, there it is. Okay,
It should say in the lower right-hand corner. Yeah, if you're looking at your packet.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no problem.
Any else? Any more questions? Chuck, what's our next steps here? Do you guys need any feedback from us right at this time, or do you guys need to go out and do some more research to come back to us with firmer numbers, or?
Well, I don't know that we're looking for board direction tonight. I think it's something we want to discuss maybe at the retreat, but we wanted you to have this information to make sure you get any questions you have answered so that we can go and start talking about that. Because obviously this is $1 million more. We've got to look at the utility funds to see how that can be done. And Aaron, with design and then construction, is this and potentially some right of way or easements? Is this a 2-year project to get this done? To get it in operation, or what's your opinion?
I'm sorry, I put myself back on mute. I think construction's probably neighborhood of 18 months.
18 months, and then how long for design?
Oh, yeah, for the easement acquisition and design is probably, you're right, it's probably about 2 years.
So, and Chuck, what does this do to our project down at 144th Street? I mean, are we going to be able to bring that online, or?
No, you can't do that pump station until you do this other line.
So where are we at on that project
right now?
Yeah.
Well, that's what brought this up. We were getting ready to try and get the project ready to go to bid, and that's when Kenton took another review of this and determined, that the pumps that we were getting sized weren't going to fit. So
does that project, because that's budgeted this year, right?
Correct.
Then do we need to, for that project, are we going to have to push that to the end of this, or more towards the end of this project, and
this year is effective, or that project is effectively on hold until this project is completed.
So, and we don't want to take that as an encumbrance for multiple years, right? So do we have to do a budget amendment to move that around to be able to do this?
We've got funds associated for expenditure. So how we expend it, we can amend the budget to formally change that. We can look at ways to address that. We can have those discussions. As much as anything, what we wanted to do was ensure that the board, before we went into the retreat, whether we talk about this specifically or not, but has the information that we've got something that affects our current and our next 3 to 5 year budgeted items, the timing of those items, and affects our cash flow for the utility fund. I mentioned in the budget work session earlier this evening that one of the work sessions in June, we need to talk about CARES and ERA funding. The American Recovery Act, we are still reviewing, but it appears that those funds can be utilized for infrastructure being sewer and water. We are confirming that information. We had hoped to be able to bring $1.9 million forward to discuss items that would include the 144th Street station project. But this is going to supersede that from our perspective. Chuck or Jack or Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong there. So we wanted to bring this information so the board was aware of these changing priorities and pushing a timeline out. And these changes have pretty significant ramifications for those projects we've talked about.
And it also expenses to Kansas City to pay for the sewer down there for Forest Oaks, right? They have not started reducing sewer rates in Kansas City at any point that I've noticed. So
correct.
So Stephen, we got to make sure we account for that too, because I know we had not paying that anymore in the future. So
if I may, I apologize. This is Jack again. something Kenton said earlier has me wanting to ask him a question. To see if it adjusts anything.
Jack, you cut
As
out.
I
a lot of that for
understand,
us to be able to
when we get everything on board, the 144th pump station will overwhelm all the pumps that are up there. I'm sorry. If Forest Oaks line, 144th pump station go in now, portion. My point being, if we can open up the mid part of town for development, it will, on this pump line, it may make it a little easier for the rest of it to happen in 2 years down the road.
Right. But we're just pushing the Forest Oaks project out even more years. And, you know, there's people that live in that area that have been aware of this project and served on this board that made commitments to get that done in this timeline. So I get it. We just have to.
Yeah. My thought is, if we don't add all the stuff on the south, we may be able to do the pump station. And then when we're ready to do the south stuff, we also have to do the 12-inch line. Gives us a 2-year window for both projects.
Well, hopefully we find that box of gold while we're doing streetscape they buried under the streets back 100 years ago, but I don't have high hopes for that. So any other questions for Jack or Chuck or Aaron or anyone else? Kent?
Cynthia, so let me understand, really, we need to discuss this in our upcoming and come together for further recommendations. Is that correct?
I really wanted to ensure that you all had this information as we go into our retreat and our budget deliberations, because this has significant impact on the funds that we have available. This is something that staff has learned within the last few weeks, and we wanted to make sure the board had the information as soon as possible as well, so that you have kind of that full view of the utility fund as we're moving forward. Does that make sense, Dan?
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification.
Okie dokie. Anything else? Well, Smithville won 21-1 in 2 innings, so there's our good news to end on. Any new business for the floor? No new business? Aaron, appreciate you guys attending and providing this information. I know it's not always, I know it's not good news, but you know, it's better to know now than when we have a bunch of pump stations backing up, I guess. So that would have been even worse, right? So
That is a fact. And again, know that, you know, it was difficult to bring this to you, but you know, we wanted to tell you the bad news in person and apologize.
Appreciate that. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Hartman raised his hand. Oh, I didn't see who else. Who was first? Who was first? Saw Dan.
Yes.
Does anyone, somebody second Dan's motion to adjourn?
Second it.
I'll second.
I heard you all there. I don't know. I'll go with Dan Udall. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 No. Stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.